With the first round of the CFB playoffs almost being done, only needing Georgia and Notre Dame to finish off this game that is going on right now, and coming up onto week 18 of the NFL season, we have a bit of a mix-up since the Giants decided to win in week 17, which I'm still very confused about, but it shook up a lot of things, and it probably helped the Patriots and their future. But today we're not going to have any sort of trades. This is going to continue to be a fluid draft. No trades at all, just going with what I think each team would be going with at their spot. I will bring in trades once the NFL season's over, once we hear some things and speculation about certain teams possibly trading on from their picks. If the Patriots keep the first overall pick, if the Titans trade out of their spot, if they want to go with their QBs that they have. There's a lot of value in having a top 3 pick in this draft, and the people in the top 3 could possibly not go with a QB, with a lot of the other teams on the outside looking in possibly wanting to do so, like the Giants or the Jets or the Raiders, specifically the Raiders with Shedeur Sanders. But we're going to get straight into it with obviously Travis Hunter being the first pick off of the board now that the Patriots are the number 1 pick. He had a bit of a down game against BYU, but he still showed out in the best of his abilities. I mean, it wasn't really to his fault. Shedeur Sanders didn't have a great day, but hopefully he'll be rid of some luggage before he gets to New England so he can keep the pace that he's been at. His cardiovascular has been able to help him be very effective on both sides of the ball, but I think that he is going to stay as a corner for the Patriots, and being on the other side of Christian Gonzalez and the way that he was already mentored for 3 to 4 years by Deion Sanders, his cardio again just helps him so much on the defense because they can rely on him to be out there the entire game without worrying about him getting tired. Obviously, I don't know if they're going to go with the wide receiver package for him. I don't know if Gerard Mayo has that type of versatility in his repertoire. But we're going to move on to the Tennessee Titans, who is probably going to be one of the picks that a lot of people don't expect from me in terms of the first quarterback off the board. I have Cam Ward being the first quarterback off the board if the Tennessee Titans are the team that is here at the second pick. I think, again, I've said this many times, I think he is the more talented QB and the more mature QB. And I think most of the teams that are outside of big markets aren't really looking at Shedeur Sanders as their guy that they have to get right now. They're more looking at each one as a 1A, 1B. And picking Cam over Shedeur, I think is the best case scenario for the Titans. In the first half of the bowl game he played, he put up 200 yards and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions, which, I mean, Shedeur could not say the same with BYU basically just locking him up completely. Cam Ward out of Miami, my favorite QB prospect. I think he's going to show out. I think he's going to be great for this Titans offense, or the new Titans offense, because they struggled with a young quarterback before him, Malik Willis. But the Cleveland Browns at this spot, I'm thinking in a way of they want to move on from Deshaun Watson, but aren't going to so soon. And I think this could be also another good scenario for Shedeur Sanders. With Cam getting taken at the 2 spot, he shouldn't be going any further than this 3rd spot, whether it's Cleveland trading out of it, giving this pick to the Giants, and getting some draft picks out of it from the Giants because they know how desperate they are to get a new QB, or just sticking and picking Shedeur Sanders for their future, for the move on from Deshaun Watson, whenever that may be. I think his contract expires in 2027, if I'm not mistaken. So they have about a season or 2 until they're rid of him. But these 2 picks are 1A, 1B. I think what's mostly concerning for me, well, I'll give you the plus side first. The plus side is he played in the bowl game, which gives the outlook that he is a team first type of guy. He's not worried about getting injured, of possibly affecting his draft stock with an injury. Obviously, he's going to be a top 5 pick regardless of if he played bad or not. We've seen it. A lot of people still have him in the top 3. I'm not opposed to it. But the downside that I've seen over the year, and I've just seen it continue to get worse and worse and worse, is that when he's without pressure, Amazing quarterback. One of the most accurate ones. A 93 grade on PFF without pressure. But with pressure, he is graded at a 65.2, which is concerning because not only for the Giants O-line, but the Cleveland Browns O-line, specifically them, have a aging offensive line that they probably need to try to get younger at or just get healthier. There's no other way to go about it, but with the time that they have to be able to put Shador in replacement of Watson, I think they could fix those things and nick them out, but this could be a good scenario for him. I know that he wants to play immediately, and he may play immediately. Maybe the Giants just take him, and I'm completely wrong about the Browns even looking at Shador Sanders. I just don't know if Deshaun Watson is really your guy, and having this top pick, I don't know if it's going to be something that you can rely on for next year. So I'm going to go with Shador Sanders as of right now. I can't wait to get into trade mock drafts because that's going to be a lot more fun to do these type of things because, again, I just don't see Shador falling out the top 3, no matter the teams that are there, obviously except for teams that just drafted a QB. But the New York Giants now here, the unfortunate teams, the unfortunate team themselves, I feel like this is a scenario that we're experiencing again, like the Texans had with Lovie Smith before they ended up firing him. That Lovie put everything into, I think it was the last game of the season, to completely affect their draft stock and drop from the first pick to the second pick and end up picking CJ Stroud, which Daboll could be getting fired. I don't know. I don't know if it's a great idea. But this could be a similar situation that Daboll's doing everything in his power to sabotage the draft stock of the New York Giants. And with that draft stock being sabotaged as it is, they could trade up or they can stick here, pick, and then pick a QB in the next draft, go with a quarterback like Justin Fields, like I've been preaching basically every week about this, or every time that I am doing these mock drafts. I don't see them trying to pay as much as they did for Daniel Jones. I don't, and that is directly at Sam Darnold possibly being an option. I just don't see that being a case. I think they could pay Justin Fields maybe 15 to 20 mil a year, 3-year contract possibly. Justin Fields gets really good. They either move on from him in coming drafts with QB prospects that are going to be coming out of it, or they stick with Justin Fields, they continue with him and just build around him over time. But it's a difficult choice between tackle and Will Johnson at this spot. Tackle, opposite of Andrew Thomas, needs help. And you could put Will Campbell there. But as of right now, I'm going to have Will Johnson be the choice at the end of the day. He's been tremendous for this defense. And I think they just want to look at the rookie contract money that they could get for the type of talent that Will Johnson is, which would cost a hefty penny in free agency. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock at the 5th spot. And they have a situation on their offensive line that needs desperate help. Whether it's guard, whether it's tackle, wherever they decide to put each player, they just need capable talent. And it's pretty self-explanatory where I'm going with this. The Jaguars have showed it all year. Trevor Lawrence, again, with a season-ending injury. They should be looking to replace this hole of Brandon Sheriff that could be leaving at the end of the season with his expiration of his contract. Will Campbell is the only man that I can see going at the spot for the Jaguars. Of course, Calvin Banks is possible, but both tackles haven't really been like, wow, or none of the tackles have been. They kind of been at the same level. They haven't been Joe Alt type of upside in a lot of people's eyes. But Will Campbell could be a very good offensive lineman, whether they put him at guard for the short term or put him at tackle already, even though they re-signed Walker Little. They have Antoine Harrison. I just think Will Campbell would be the best case scenario for this Jaguars offensive line that needs to help Trevor Lawrence even more than they already have. But the Carolina Panthers, a lot of people would probably see me going with Abdul Carter at this position. I'm not. I'm not going with the dual Carter. I think that they need to try, or they're going to try, to focus on helping Bryce Young. And as much as this thing says that they need a QB, I don't see them moving on from Bryce Young. I think they look for his number one option. Adam Thielen is not going to be that for the rest of his career. They look at Tatario McMillan. I can't see them going any other way if Tatario McMillan is already dropping this far. Bryce Young's future has now turned around, and they need to focus on that as much as possible. He's ranked top 3 in missed tackles force and also top 3 in contested catches, which gives you that yards after catch after every catch, and still be able to be Bryce's reliable guy to just throw it up to, which Adam Thielen has been great at this year, but I don't see him doing that past this year. I really don't. And Tatario McMillan, I could definitely see that pairing working out for Bryce Young and T-Mag. As the New York Jets, who, with news that I found out today, Jalen Milroe has declared for the draft, which I'm not a big fan of. I was going to make that very clear. I think Jalen Milroe should stay another year in college. I think he still has some room to develop. I know that he's scared that his draft stock is going to drop even more. I think you take the chance. You go to Alabama. Like, I don't see them being as bad as they were this year, next year. I don't. I think Jalen Milroe could have developed a lot more, but he's taking a chance on himself, and I don't blame him. The Jets might be a team that end up going with him in a later round, possibly a second round, top second. I could definitely see it, but as of right now, I don't see them taking him here. They have Dylan Gabriel above Jalen Milroe. That's enough said. But moving on from that, I'm going to have to go with a position that is on the side of the ball that has been very disappointing for the Jets. They went from a top 5 ranked defense last year to I don't even know what the fuck happened to them. I really don't. But Mason Graham out of Michigan is such a game wrecker, and he is such a force on the inside, which seems to be something that the Jets just need help with on that defensive line in general. Yes, I know Quinnen Williams is insane, and he's also a game changer. He's also a game wrecker. I think that Mason Graham can help him even more for the Jets because that secondary seems to need to get its footing back. Putting Mason Graham next to Quinnen Williams will take a lot of pressure off of him and make Mason Graham look very good. As the Raiders are now here on the clock after the New York Jets and could be going a specific route that I don't see teams looking at per se. But cornerback is a position that has been lacking for this Raiders defense. And Benjamin Morrison, before he got injured, was good. He was very good. He was tremendous. I think he can continue that. And this would not be something that I think a lot of people would be surprised about for the Raiders taking a chance on somebody that has high upside, has a pretty deep floor if he ends up being drafted by the Raiders. They just need a cornerback in general that's going to be talented. He was in the conversation with Will Johnson to be one of the top cornerbacks off the board, and I remember that very vividly. This is almost like a Tyree Wilson situation for them. It's a big hit or miss, and this could be the hit while Tyree Wilson was definitely the miss. Benjamin Morrison going to the Las Vegas Raiders out of Notre Dame, who have been performing very well. As the Chicago Bears at the 9th spot are in very, very desperate need of offensive line. Caleb Williams has been running around so much with basically the pocket just falling apart immediately, which maybe it's on him for not stepping up in the pocket. Maybe it's not on him because the offensive line is just bad. There's no other way to look at it, but as of right now, they just need to try to help in that department as the rest of the offense is fine. They have DJ Moore. They have Roma Dunze. Keenan Allen might be leaving. I don't know. I think he's going to be staying there. I don't see him going back to the Chargers, which he said it's the Chargers or the Bears. He doesn't care about money. But they have a tight end. All the weapons are there. As much as I said Ashton Jeanty in the last mock draft, I'm not going with him in this one for the Bears. I think I'm just going to go with offensive line and Kelvin Banks Jr. being the man to come help the Chicago Bears offensive line. Whether they put him at guard, also a similar situation to Will Campbell. Wherever they put him, whether it's to fill in the interior for the short term or put him at tackle to continue to develop and just try to help Caleb not have to run out the pocket every single snap, which may be lack of skill for Caleb Williams to just not break the entire pocket completely. Kelvin Banks, I think, can help that situation in Chicago. But if that doesn't do it, I would definitely look in the mirror with Caleb Williams, which would be another situation for the Bears that they could have just kept Justin Fields. But moving on to the New Orleans Saints at the 10th spot. Like I said, this is a no trades mock draft, and it's going to continue to be for a good time until the college football season is done and the NFL season is done. Once both is done, it's no holds bar. It's no holds bar for this, but as of right now, Abdul Carter going to the Saints is a match made in heaven, just because Abdul Carter's not falling out of the top 5 in any normal draft. I think he's very talented. I think they showed it in this recent game against Boise State. They made that QB's life a living hell, and making Ashton Jeanty only get 104 yards, while normally for any other running back in college football is a good day, that's a off day for Ashton Jeanty. I think Abdul Carter is going to fill in that superstar role that Cameron Jordan has right now in the Saints, while he hasn't been it in recent years. Could be that guy for the Saints going into the future, as Chase Young might be moving on as well. I love Abdul Carter out of Penn State. I think he has developed so well since the start of the season. It's been great to see. But him going to New Orleans is probably the best case scenario for both. And the San Francisco 49ers at the 11th spot is a position that I really did not expect in the early mock drafts. I even said it when they're at the 16th spot that might not be a scenario. They might be at the bottom. But here they are, just outside the top 10. And while I'm not the biggest fan of unknowns when it comes to offensive line, this specific tackle, Josh Simmons, has been getting a lot of traction in recent news and recent draft talks, with more teams being in need of offensive linemen. He, again, I've said it before, he has only allowed one man past him in the 8 games that he played, and it wasn't even a QB hit. He didn't even end up touching the QB, which a lot of teams are going to be looking at in these films in those 8 games that he did play. He's going to have to do the combine. He's going to have to perform and show that he is the same capable tackle that he was before he got injured. But I don't see the 49ers going anywhere else but tackle. Obviously, cornerback is a possibility. It just seems like their offensive line needs a bit more help with the age that it has, with the lack of depth that it has now. Josh Simmons is the man to go to San Francisco. And if I had a dream pick as a football fan in this NFL draft, it's to see Malachi Starks go to the Indianapolis Colts. Other than the Buffalo Bills, but Buffalo's not going to be at the 12th spot. Buffalo's not going to be high enough to get a talent in Malachi Starks. But he would fill the void that the Colts have had in recent years, whether it's been the revolving door of the safety position for them, or it's a player not playing to the level that they expected him to at the safety position. They have been getting beat downfield, especially against not a great passing attack in the New York Giants. They just allowed them to get deep almost every play. Whether it wasn't even just Malik Neighbors. So I don't want to see in the comments, oh, it was Malik Neighbors. It was Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson also cooking up that secondary. Malachi Starks, I feel like, would make such a difference immediately for that Colts secondary, and I just can't see any better scenario for the Colts to not get a safety at that position. And this is just seems to be the obvious pick at this point, who was supposed to be the Heisman winner, did end up winning running back of the year in college. I don't think that was a surprise. He was 20 yards short of beating Barry Sanders. And if it wasn't for Penn State's defense, he definitely would have beaten it, probably by a landslide. But he's easily one of the best running back prospects we've seen in a very long time. Ashton Zenty, a lot of people didn't like the Malachi Starks pick for them, but Ashton Zenty going to the Dallas Cowboys, I think he would just absolutely eat with them relying on him, hopefully relying on him, and not just wasting his talents. The Arizona Cardinals at the 14th spot have an opportunity to get a very talented edge slash linebacker who plays for Georgia. He's one of the best defensive players in college football. Bringing that type of pedigree to this Arizona Cardinals defense could just propel that young defense that they've been building and building and building even more forward, with Jalen Walker going to the state of Arizona. I love Jalen Walker going there. Like I said, he can play on the edge. He can drop back and pass. I love what he's able to do. And I think the Arizona Cardinals coaching staff is going to love it as well. As the Miami Dolphins at the 15th spot have seen the top two tackles come off the board, but I still see them taking the best available at that position. As much as I want them to go cornerback, yes, there's some lack of skill in that room, and Siobhan Revel, Jahdae Barron, Darian Porter, Trey Amos. I mean, I like all those picks. I really do, and I want them to go with one of them. I just can't see them going anywhere else but tackle. Tackle is the best case scenario with an aging tackle in Teron Armstead, with the guard position basically being an unknown since Robert Hunt left. Ursary seems like the best case scenario. It's between Wyatt Millum and him, but I'm going to take Ursary. I think he can fill in where they need him to for the time being, and when Armstead eventually retires, he can go to his left tackle position and just continue to be that consistent factor for the Miami Dolphins going into the future. And Tua Tagovailoa's full extension, which still blanking on me why they would even sign him to an extension. But the Cincinnati Bengals, who have been the best offense in the NFL, which is scaring a lot of Buffalo fans at this very moment, that they could possibly make the playoffs since they have never won against Joe Burrow when he's starting for the Bengals. This is assuming that T. Higgins is going to be gone. I'm looking at wide receiver for them in the first round. I think the rest of the draft, they go defense. I think in free agency, they go defense if T. Higgins is not acquirable. Because all the money that they would be trying to give to T. Higgins, they should try to invest into the defensive line or some of the secondary. The secondary has somewhat stepped up now, but the defensive line is still lacking other than Trey Hendrickson. But between Emeka Egbuka and Luther Burden, who are the top two wide receiver prospects that we see right now at this point, I still think that Luther is the more skilled and talented receiver, although I have very high hopes for Emeka. Luther would be coming in to replace departing T. Higgins. I'm still unsure if T. Higgins even leaves with the way that he was vowing to take less money if they need him to. But if he gets a bag from the Patriots or a team like that, I just don't see him saying no to $45 million. That just seems not very NFL-like. Luther Burden would be coming to replace that spot of T. Higgins, who doesn't need to be in the shadow, per se, of Jamar Chase, but he can be that 1A, 1B as T. Higgins has been in recent years, if executed correctly. But the Atlanta Falcons at the 17th spot seems to need more of a for sure edge rusher, and I've had them taking James Pierce Jr. in recent drafts. no matter the position that they've been at, they've usually been lower. But since they have been losing more, since the Bucs took the NFC South spot or top spot, they have jumped to the 17th spot. And I think they need to be able to get an edge rusher that they know is going to be very consistent and very good, especially in the run game. And that is Mykel Williams. Again, I've said that he's a specimen. He is insane. He's a great complement to Jalen Walker as of right now. But they just need edge help in any sort of way possible in this Atlanta Falcons front seven. And Mykel Williams could fit that just fine for their future. And the Seattle Seahawks at the 18th spot. Sorry, Georgia just fumbled again. The Seattle Seahawks at the 18th spot, while it says guard, tackle, linebacker, I don't see them taking any of those. I still am sticking strong on their expiring contracts of the defensive interior. And I would just love to see Kenneth Grant go to Seattle and fill that in and be that premier defensive tackle on the Seahawks for the foreseeable future, with him stepping out of the shadow of Mason Graham if he was even in it, really. I think he can propel his own career and that defensive line of the Seahawks for very long, with some good talent on the edge as well. But Kenneth Grant would just come and help them not have to spend money on those players coming back at all. As the Houston Texans at the 19th spot have also been in need of defensive interior, but only because of the run game. I've seen it throughout this entire season. Teams have been able to run on them a significant amount. And that's specifically down the middle. It's not on the outside. Obviously, they have Jonathan Grenard, or not Jonathan Grenard, they used to. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr., great talents on the edge, but they're not going to be able to stop the run on the inside unless they literally get around the tackle, which most times they're not going to be able to every single play. Alfred Collins is an amazing run defender, and he really showed it on a very big stage against ASU with a very talented running back in Cam Skadabu, who I'm going to love talking about in draft season and possibly longer drafts other than the first round. I think that he is just a stone wall when it comes to the defensive interior, and with the Texans being 13th in interior running and allowing 4.5 yards per carry through the middle of their defense, I think he would be able to just stop that completely. It's the same area that the Bills need to focus on, and it would just even it out because they're outside running defense is ranked 7th in the NFL. I just can't see a better situation for the Texans not taking a defensive interior player of the size of Alfred Collins. 320, 6'5". I mean, he's just he's a unit. He's a unit for the run game. Maybe he's not great in pass rush, but when he knows there's a run, he's going to be right there in the gap that the running back is going to decide to go to, and they're not getting through him at all. The Denver Broncos at the 20th pick have a big question mark at a specific position, and that is the tight end position. Wide receiver has been more of the one that they've been seeing more talent pop up, like Marvin Mims, Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's on an expiring contract. I expect them to re-sign him. Bo Nix has been very reliable, or he has been very reliable for Bo Nix. He's been very reliant on Cortland Sutton. But with this pick, I want them to go Colston Loveland. Go with tight end that you know that Bo Nix is going to be able to rely on. Be the security blanket for his future. And line it up completely with Bo Nix. And it would be a match made in heaven since Colston Loveland was already a security blanket for below average QBs at Michigan in this past year and still performed very well. With the Tampa Bay Bucks at the 21st spot, I've only seen Vita Vea be the difference in that defensive line, while everybody else has kind of been able to eat off of him. And they just need to keep trying to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Nick Scorton could possibly stick. He's had the talent. He's had the upside to be able to be that type of guy on the edge. And he could come in and help them. I'm not the most confident about it, but there's not really much better choices to fit their scheme and to fit their situation. Whether it's Nick Scorton or James Pierce Jr., I really think it's going to be Nick Scorton. I think he could possibly be their next best edge player or edge rusher on that defense, as the Chargers are now up on the clock at the 22nd pick. Obviously, tight end and defensive line are a need, and it's very apparent where I'm going to go with this. Tyler Warren is the only person that I can see going to this Chargers team. Whether Colson Loveland is there or not, I think Tyler Warren is definitely the better pick for them. It's a match made in heaven for the hardball and the scheme that they would need Tyler Warren to be in, because he's able to block for the run and also be an amazing receiving option for the QB. He could even be used in different packages, which he has been able to do at Penn State and very effectively. Herbert and him as the future of the Chargers could be like Antonio Gates and Phillip Rivers. I think it's beautiful. I think it could be very beautiful, as the Los Angeles Rams at the 23rd spot are up on the clock, and I really just can't see them going any other route but offensive line, and Wyatt Millum is the best player on the board for what they need. Obviously, his grades are great. Different conference than most of these tackles that we've seen getting taken before him. Still think he's better than Cameron Williams. Still think he's better than all the other tackles that are available after him. And they just need to keep getting younger with that offensive line, as they've been able to do in recent drafts. It is going to help the end of one career in Matthew Stafford and be able to prepare for their next QB of the future and not have to worry the way that the Chicago Bears are worrying for Caleb Williams. Wyatt's talented. We just really have to see if he's able to translate to the NFL. Shows great promise from the Mountaineers. I think that that's going to be the most ideal pick for the Rams. They could go corner. I could definitely see them going corner, but tackle would not be a bad pick at all, especially if it's Wyatt Millum, as the Green Bay Packers are definitely going to be going corner. Jair Alexander has not been the example of consistency in terms of being available, and I think they have to take a chance on this guy, even if he also has a recent injury that could cause him not to be as reliable either. Siobhan Revel, that's my guy for Green Bay. I think he could have the same type of Quinyon Mitchell impact that Quinyon Mitchell had on the Eagles, which, I mean, a lot of us thought that a lot of the mock drafts YouTubers thought that Quinyon Mitchell was going to be that type of guy. Thankfully, he did end up being. But Siobhan Revel could possibly be a similar scenario. Even before his torn ACL, he was performing well. He's been performing well over the past 2 years. I think he could be a great add-on. I think he could, out of East Carolina. The Pittsburgh Steelers at the 25th spot. I can't see going any other way but Emeka Egbuka. I can't, because I think he could definitely be the Amon-Ra type of role for this Pittsburgh Steelers offense that Amon-Ra was in for a while before they got Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs and such. It's not like he was there so many years before, but he was able to solidify his spot in that offense, and getting somebody like Emeka Egbuka could bring consistency, whether it's Russell Wilson or Justin Fields if they end up keeping Justin Fields. I don't know what they're going to do at the QB spot, but I think Emeka Egbuka is the best case scenario for whoever is the next QB for them. As the Washington Commanders at the 26th spot, as much as they got Marshawn Lattimore in a trade at the cornerback position, a major riser while in the CFB playoffs and the end of the season, and who has just stood out and stopped some of the biggest players in college football, is Jahdae Brown. I mean, he's great in zone, very solid in man, and he can be relied on in the run, and a lot of cornerbacks are not able to do that, but he is the man that you would want on your team to be your future and also play alongside somebody like Marshawn Lattimore. Marshawn Lattimore, yeah, he didn't perform well in a recent game against A.J. Brown. He performed well enough, but he wasn't the player that he once was with the Saints. I think learning from him while transitioning into the NFL would only help Jahdae and Washington for the future. I don't know why I picked edge, but Jahdae Barron. Why did I say Brown? Why do I keep saying Brown? Jahdae Barron. I don't know why I keep saying Brown. I even typed Brown. Moving on to the Baltimore Ravens at the 27th spot. A guy that I've been very high on because he is basically Tacario Davis if Tacario Davis actually wanted to be competent as a cornerback at Arizona. Darian Porter. Great in coverage. Yes, he's not going to be amazing in run or man. He's 6'4", 200 pounds. The Baltimore Ravens run 70% of their plays being zone. I don't see them worrying about the fact that Darian Porter can't be in man. I don't. And this will continue to be on their trajectory of making the defensive backs in the secondary even younger. Nate Wiggins being their recent pick. Tackle just doesn't seem like the type of pick that they would be looking at with how scarce it is at this point in this draft or in this draft order. I like Darian Porter going to the Baltimore Ravens. They've been the type to take the chance on the certain guys and somewhat been able to hit. Nate Wiggins has been wishy-washy in terms of his ability to be a great cornerback, but Darian Porter I could see being a good complement to that, as the Philadelphia Eagles at the 28th spot are on the board. And edge, linebacker, I like LT Overton going to the Philadelphia Eagles off the edge from Alabama. He's able to win on the inside, able to win on the outside, and they've just been they've been in need of somebody that can do that for them and also just win in pass rush. I think that's been something that they've been looking for in recent drafts, whether it's Nolan Smith or people in that position. I like LT Overton going to the Philadelphia Eagles. I like it a lot. I think he's very capable of filling in roles in that dynamic Eagles defense. As the Buffalo Bills at the 29th spot, like I said, they're in a similar situation as the Texans. They've just been able to not show it as much. Their run defense just needs to be focused on in this draft, whether it's in the draft or it's in free agency. I think the best case scenario is the draft. And between Tyleik Williams from Ohio State or Walter Nolan from Mississippi, I'm taking Walter Nolan 100% of the time if I'm looking for somebody that can be my run defender, but also be able to be relied on in pass rush as well. Walter Nolan can do them both, but he is a great run defender, and this would put a scenario for Buffalo that they don't have to keep relying on signing expiring contracts with Daquan Jones or other defensive tackles or defensive interior players that they just need to put there as a body. But it's been a weakness, a significant weakness on that Buffalo Bills defense, and Walter Nolan could be a staple piece of the future for that Bills defense. As the Detroit Lions, another pairing that I think could work out very well for both sides, and that's James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee going to the Detroit Lions. I'm not even going to hesitate on him going to Detroit. It is somewhere where James Pierce would not need to have so much pressure on him to be this star player. But since he won't have all that pressure, he's going to be able to become that. and be relied on as Aiden Hutchinson is. His athleticism, his ability to get off the line, I think is only going to help that defensive line that has been very injured lately and just add more depth to it that they've been in need of. Yes, the offensive line, again, is something that they could be looking at. I just don't see them taking somebody like Cameron Williams or any other player that's available at this point for the offensive line. And James Pierce Jr. already being here at the 30th spot seems like something that they would want to look at for their edge with the scheme that they've already been able to run and having basically lack of talent. No offense to whoever got signed by the Lions at those points that they needed them, but they haven't been Aiden Hutchinson, they haven't been Sedarius Smith, and those type of players that have been able to stand out even without the scheme. Their scheme makes it easy for players to develop and get the confidence to be the standout players for them. As the Minnesota Vikings at 31st spot are just in need of cornerback, and it's not a pretty pick, it's not like a high upside pick. Trey Amos is a very good player, good skills, good size. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's not the type of player that you're expecting to be an insane addition to this defense. Now, hopefully he is. Hopefully he is that type of guy, but in my mind, I'm not thinking of this in a way of he's going to replace Byron Murphy Jr. I'm not. Which, with other players like Shaban Revel, I could possibly see doing that in the short term. Trey Amos is more of the reliable second guy to Byron Murphy. And that's no offense to him at all. None at all. Very solid cornerback. Round one talent. I think that he is able to be taken by the Minnesota Vikings. As much as the Minnesota Vikings are probably going to not be at the 31st spot, I could see them being at like 28, 29. But in any scenario, I think they have to take corner. It's been the position that they've been in need of. Running back is interesting. I understand Aaron Jones. It's possible they go to Marion Hampton. He's very talented. I just don't see them taking him in the first round. Moving on, though, we're going to go to the Kansas City Chiefs, who have been lacking on the offensive line. And while it is slim pickings at this point, I'm not taking Cameron Williams for them. I'm taking Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State, who has been great for North Dakota State. I'm just not the biggest fan of drafting players out of these conferences. But it doesn't seem like the Chiefs have much of a choice to not do it with how their tackles have just been piss poor. They need to take a chance on somebody. They need to hope that Gray Zabel works out. But I think it is what would fill in that offensive line for right now. But that's going to do it for this mock draft. I think that is the best case scenario for all teams as of right now. I think it's still going to shake up a little bit before the actual draft comes. But I like it. I like it a significant amount. I like Luther Burden going to the Bengals. I like the cornerback drop over here. I think all of those could fill in well for those teams. And the edge help. The QBs at the top of the draft. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, though. I love having those conversations with you guys. As much as some of you think that I don't know what I'm talking about. Have a conversation. Let's go. Let's have a back and forth about it. Let's talk about what you think is the best case scenario for these teams and what I think is. I'm more than happy to do so. Hopefully you're not afraid to do so. I'm not. And leave a like while you're down there so we can bring these out more. I'm planning to have a awards video coming out after week 18 so we can get all the stats, everything necessary to be able to see what players should be getting certain awards and see how the end of the season goes with that. But I will see you in the next video. Peace.